This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
To safari from the African wilderness. Jumbo everyone, what a fantastic afternoon we have here. It's nice and sunny, no signs of rain. My first animal of the day is the giraffe, and this is quite an interesting interaction that I have here. It's one of those rare chances I see one sitting and one standing. It's so beautiful, it's hard to explain. As you can see, it's hazy quite a long way. I don't know if somebody is burning some grass down in the Serengeti. When they burn grass, sometimes we get this smoky kind of weather or sight. Yes, and look at this, he has stood up. It looks like they're coming my way. These are the Masa. Also,
we're going to go to the helmet strikes. Helmet strikes. Hello everyone, good afternoon. I wonder if you heard me say helmet strikes. I wanted to go check out the white-crested helmet strike nest. That's why we're having a bit of a rolling start. There, these little cuties. I should probably tell you who I am. My name is Trishal and I've got Theo on camera with me this lovely afternoon in Tswalu Game Reserve. It's not raining, it's not thundering, no lightning. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yes, these little ones. Oh, what a grumpy face. So sweet. At least this time when we're visiting, they're not begging for food. Just relaxed and chilling, having a bit of a nap as all young things should. Oh, it agrees with me, I think. It's about 26 degrees Celsius, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, so really lovely temperature. Clearly they're enjoying it, being snuggled up like that. Oh, so sweet. Now we've just come from the hyena den. Just wanted to check if it's active. On days like this when it's overcast and cooler, it can be active throughout the day. Unfortunately, not for us right now. But we can always check it out a little bit later, as I intend to. But for now, we're going to move on from these little ones and see what else the bush has to gift us today.
Very warm welcome to everybody to a wonderful day here on Tswalu Kalahari. What a fantastic afternoon it is. Good afternoon, my name is Carl, behind camera is David. And what a fantastic afternoon it is. It's just cool, the sun is out, the animals are moving, we've got butterflies everywhere. It is just one of those days. There's a lot of brown veined whites that are at the edge of the pan here, all busy having a drink or tapping into some minerals there. Obviously the mineral content of there would be very good for certain insects, especially butterflies. And what a wonderful sight that is. And the giraffe in the distance having a late afternoon nibble. Obviously they spend a lot of time browsing to keep that big body going. We've just stopped at this pan. We are in search of fork-tailed drongos. Like I mentioned this morning, we want to try and find a nest to see that interaction between different species, that of the fork-tailed drongo and the African cuckoo. It'd be a wonderful sight to see, and what an amazing and magical moment to share with you folks. That giraffe really putting his head into things. There's quite a few of them over here. There must be about 10 of them dotted and splayed out all around us. There's a few in the distance over there, one busy browsing over there, and then a few in front of us here. Looks like a group of males. See those very thick, very erect ossicones. Those two horn-like projections on top of the skull, on top of the head. So from here, once we finish with these giraffe, we're going to head further down south to an area which we were in about 2 days ago. And we're also going to scratch around that area and hopefully we come right with a fork-tailed drongo. And then once we find one, we got to watch it very carefully. You got to watch their behavior, especially if they're building now at the moment, if they have nesting material in the mouth, or if they have a food item. That's what you want to find to hopefully locate a nest, because birds can be very sneaky at hiding their nests. And we're looking for a little platform that's suspended between two branches. They love to make their nest in the fork of a tree. See that one busy browsing on the little shepherd's tree. See the big effect that these animals will have on the shape of a tree. Lovely breeze pushing in from the south, only about 28 degrees today, or 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So relatively cool afternoon. And then what I want to ask David to just look at is look at the moon peering over the Koronenberg mountain range here. Look at that. Almost in full view. Sun is still up, and the moon creeping over the Koronenberg, coming to say hello. And we are pushing onto a phase of full moon. So we would have gone from no moon, which is referred to as new moon, into a full moon phase. So the progression now we refer to as waxing. It's progressing from new to full. What a spectacle that is. So these guys are moving off slowly. Yeah, so having a very big effect on water, that big beautiful body up there, and something that I obviously hold very dearly to myself is obviously the ocean, and that moon playing a vital role on the fluctuating water from high to low tide, also within estuaries or rivers. Oh, that giraffe's focused on something. It's just very calm today. Sure, there's a lot happening. I actually don't know where to look. You can see how nimble that giraffe is by feeding off that bush. Obviously, the elongated face, long eyelashes, very mobile lips, lots of tiny little hairs around that lip, around the lips, enables this animal to nimbly select for which parts of the tree it would like to feed on. They're very selective feeders. If you look at a giraffe feeding, you think, they'll just pick any old tree or any old leaf. They're actually fairly fussy. And I can't believe the amount of water sitting in this pan. A couple of days ago, it was maybe a 20 by 20. Deadbeat, why are we seeing the moon in the day? It's just its celestial orbit around the Earth and where it is positioned at the moment in relation to us and with the sun. And that it'll actually come up earlier and earlier. It moves a couple of minutes every day further. So it's just its rotation around Earth, and then obviously with Earth and the sun that we can see it now. So as it rises earlier, obviously the very intense light, we will not be able to see it in the coming days. But it's just the angle of the sun at the moment, where the Earth is positioned in relation to the sun, how we can see the moon. And you can see the bottom half actually cast, a shadow being cast, the bottom half which would be the shadow of the Earth, which is remarkable to see. And being on that celestial body looking back, we are literally a blue marble sitting in this vast tapestry of celestial bodies and then dark cosmos. And that's exactly the same line that the sun would follow, and then as well as other celestial bodies like Venus and Jupiter and even Saturn would follow that same line where the moon is coming up from now. And all those celestial bodies follow this same arc that travels across our beautiful blue sky. It's moved quite a bit already. Hey? Crazy, hey? That wind keeping us nice and cool. So I've got the AC on a nice moderate temperature for today, keeping David and myself nice and breezy while we travel over the vast landscape of Tswalu. Very pale individual, that one. So you can see how they move up, quite loosely. They're not very close, not tightly knit individuals, giraffe. They've got no long-lasting bonds between each other. So you can see a part of the group is moving up north, and oh, tortoise. Yes, hello, buddy. Little leopard tortoise, wonderful, coming to the pan to drink. For now, we'll keep tabs on the tortoise. We're going to send you off to one of our other colleagues, and we'll see you shortly. Yo.
Very good afternoon to and beyond Pinnabrive Game Reserve. My name is Dewald, and behind the camera we've got Craig. We are going past an area here on the right hand side that we saw some rhinos this morning, and we are going to just see if they are still around. But other than that, we are going to be heading towards a floodplain where we had that female cheetah with her 2 cubs sleeping this morning, and they were on a carcass about a day ago, like 24 hours to 36 hours ago. So we are hoping that their food have settled down a little bit, and that they hopefully are nice and hungry, and that they're going to be a little bit more active. I don't know if you can see the clouds here in the sky. It's nice and cloudy, and it's a very cool afternoon. So hopefully they are going to be nice and active, and the youngsters, we hope, are going to be nice and playful as well. There was lots of general game around, lots of wildebeest and some impalas and so on. This is that big open area that we were looking for the rhinos on, but it doesn't seem there's anything here. Maybe Craig, with his keen eyesight, can help us spot some of the animals, but I haven't seen anything from down on my driver's seat here. I think we'll keep on going and see if we can get to that floodplain there. See if we floodplain there. See if we.
Look at that. It's a spotty cat. Can you tell who it is from the back? Let's see how good you are. Hashtag Wildeth. Oh, no. Hashtag Wildeth. Let me know who you think it is from the back. This one is a courtesy of our Silent Safari team. Oh, now you're all going to get it. Now you're all going to get it. If you guessed Tingana, well done. You know him very well. They were bumping along and happened to bump into this guy. How awesome is that for us? Oh, that's a fantastic pose there. Oh, look at that Fleming grimace. He did a bit of a grimace there, which is interesting because the other leopard that I know has been walking this way, Shidulu. The other day when we had it in the evening, not the last 2 sightings, but 3 sightings ago, she had actually been walking on this exact road. Let's try and get a little bit closer, because he's actually going to take the turn and be out of our sight very soon. All right, let's watch him take the turn. Look at him go. Look at those shoulder blades. Just gorgeous. Well, like I said, if you guessed Tingana, well done. Now, if we could just get his gorgeous face. So he was sitting down underneath the bush when we arrived, and then he decided to get up and move, which is quite nice. Ooh. It was just my lovely face there that you had. So he is on the junction basically of Zoe's and Rebecca's road at the moment, and he looks like he's actually going to be moving. You're going to have to look at my face for a little bit. Okay, no. Our lovely vehicle. Guess who's in the vehicle? Can you guess? Look at everyone, they're waving. I wonder if you could guess who's in the vehicle. All right, then we can get around him, which will be nice. I'm just going to turn here, or actually we can just see if we'll get a nice walk by of Tingana. You can do it. You can do it, Wendy. Well done. There we go. We're going to get this lovely walk by, and then we're going to let the other vehicle through as well. He's just moving to the side in the back of our vehicle at the moment. Oh, he's a stunning, stunning cat. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. He is. He's certainly very majestic. Just let the other ones go past. So this is how we usually do it when we have two vehicles following one animal, because we can only see them at one at a time. So when we kind of frog hop it. And that's what we're doing at the moment. Okay, so we'll wait for our turn to get in front again, and then we'll see you then.
Welcome back. welcome back. We are just sitting here nice and quietly and observing all these amazing butterflies. So the vast majority of them are brown-veined whites, a very remarkable species because of its very lengthy migration that it makes through South Africa in a northeasterly direction. And all those butterflies there are brown-veined whites. There might be one or two other species in between, a painted lady maybe, or African migrant, but definitely dominated by this species which is in full force at the moment. And obviously certain trees, if you look at the distribution of butterflies along the country and as well as the continent, they are tied along with vegetation. So obviously the larval food for the caterpillar, so this is the younger stage, the larval food is very important for this caterpillar to accumulate the resources it needs to finally develop and then come out as a butterfly. So where trees are distributed, you'll find certain butterflies following that path or line of vegetation. But what these individuals are doing now is just utilizing that nice soaked soil for a little bit of water, using their specialized feeding tube called the proboscis. If you look at insects, they are semi-categorized by the specialized mouth parts that they were possessed. So for example, beetles, they have chewing mouth parts, like interlocking jaws. These guys, Lepidoptera species, have long tubes that are rolled up into like a Tootsie Roll. It looks like a Tootsie Roll rolled up. It's this long feeding tube. So it's pretty remarkable, and obviously that is a very special tool for them to utilize nectar, and obviously playing a very important role when it comes to pollinating trees and flowers. But just think about just the wind that's going now, and I mean, it's not a windy day, but think about that little organism against this force. I mean, it's remarkable. You think that birds are very successful and very agile flyers. Butterflies are equally skilled in terms of managing and moving through the air. There's none above us today, eh? Beautiful crimson-breasted shrike. Oh, he's close. So in the upcoming days or weeks, there's going to be a lot of activity of these butterflies. We have 75 different recorded species just within Tswalu. That's a remarkable diversification, especially within an arid region like where we are at the moment. And I mean, from very tiny ones to large species that are about 4 or 5 centimeters in length. Oh, Jack is my name. That would vary depending on species. So if you look at age in relation to the size of the organism, generally the organism where it is larger would have a longer lifespan. So depending on the species, they could range from a week or two, and some larger species maybe a couple of months at the most. But a very varied range when it comes to the lifespan of a butterfly. But they're very important role players, like I just mentioned, for pollinating flowers and trees. But they also become a very, very important food source for a lot of organisms. So from other insects which are predatory, like dragonflies, horseflies, robberflies, and then birds, when they finally die, their bodies get broken up and becomes part of this interlocked system with the soil, and eventually the plants utilize that nutrients again. I mean, they're just doing their thing. Look at that. It's unbelievable. You can have little patches of little puddles, and you could have hundreds of butterflies within this little puddle. We're going to see you in a bit.
Walk by of Tingana again. Something's gotten his attention. Not quite sure what just yet. Look at this leopard. one of my favorite things about this job. Getting a leopard walk by. How amazing. Isn't that cool? So he's now moved to Mendoza Road, which is interesting. It looks like he's hunting, but actually, I don't know, because he seems to be sniffing quite a bit. I'm just going to turn like this. So we just see him in front on. He seems to be sniffing quite a bit, so it seems as if he's actually trying to pick up the scent of a female. And like I said, the only female that I know that's been walking in this area, especially, has been Shadulu. So maybe she's coming back into estrus after her cubs. Estrus, I think I just said estrus. That's a new word. Estrus. So maybe he's picking up her scent. So it's important to watch her. To watch him to see what kind of signals he's picking up from the urine. Keep sniffing around, sniffing around. So still. You'd think we bought a statue and put it there. There we go. On the move again. Well, he's going to take this turn now, and then we'll have to catch up with him again. Off he goes. Just popping out there on that side, and then he's going to go around, so we're going to catch up with him. Spend as much time as we can with him. He's on the move. We're going to follow.
So we actually kept on driving and we got to that floodplain. I'm just keeping my voice a little bit low so that we can see if these rhinos will settle down again. They were lying down when we just got here, but I think if we are a little bit patient, these white rhinos might lie down. You can see how this one's head is hanging down low. I think they are super sleepy. See lots of red-billed oxpeckers jumping up around them. There's actually one feeding around that one's nostril there as well. Here comes the second one. See that red-billed oxpecker going up into the nose of that rhino. He's moving his nose there, look at that. And there's some red-billed oxpeckers that are fighting over a little spot on the rhino to feed on some ticks. These rhinos are not too far away from us, probably like 30 meters or so. And I think it's because this wind is blowing all our scent away from them. You can see they are listening to my voice though, but not moving away as such. It looks like two young-ish bulls. They're not dominant bulls just yet. But I think they might settle down for a little bit. Look how he's trying to chase that red-billed oxpecker away from his nose. You'll just see him move his nostrils every now and then. Look at that. Oh, super funny. Still trying to get the red-billed oxpecker from going into his nostril there, but I think he's so sleepy he doesn't care too much. Listen to them. I don't know if you can hear that sound, but they are rubbing up against each other for a little bit. their skins touching each other. I think this one is getting ready to lie down. Look how his mouth is almost touching the ground, like he doesn't even want to keep his head up anymore. And the other one's head is also slowly going down. Keep on the eye on their eyes. Ah, yeah, it looks like his eyes are closing slowly and he's blinking them very, very slowly. Just moving a little bit further away, it seems. A big open grassland here with some wildebeest there in the back, some impalas, and there's even some zebras. Rick, unfortunately with poaching, with the poaching being so rife in Africa with rhinos, they will trim the rhinos' horns just when they've grown back a little bit. So these two will probably be trimmed very, very soon. But luckily the horns do grow back. So one day when the poaching has ended and people have realized that rhino horn has absolutely no medicinal value to it, it is just made of compressed hair like our nails, then we can leave the horns and let them grow back completely and have these animals be as majestic as they are meant to be. Not that they are any less majestic, but get them to grow their horns back. Don't know if you could hear the one zebra just calling to the others there in the background. Look at all those red-billed oxpeckers sitting in a line on the back of that rhino there. Quite a lot of them on these rhinos. I wonder if these two bulls have quite a lot of ticks sitting on them. But the fact that they're not feeding and they're not moving too much with their heads down low like that, I think these two young bulls are nice and tired and lazy. It's nice and cool, so they don't care about just lying out in the open like this. There's even a sorry, I was just saying there's looks like a Cape Lossie starling that's just joined them as well. Zay, you're asking why white rhinos are less aggressive than black rhinos. I think it's not really to do with aggression. I think it's their temperament in general. When they're a little bit more skittish just because of where they occur. They occur in more denser areas because they feed on leaves and twigs, and so I guess they do occur in some open clearings as well if there's enough food for them. But it's just the way that their social structure works, and I guess it's just the temperament of the animal. Just like a lion and a leopard also has different temperaments. Yeah, it's different with different animals, and so with the white rhino and the black rhino as well. And I think it has a lot to do with the social structure with the animals and just the way that they react to outside stimuli. There's that Cape Lossie starling just lying down to the ground behind them. Mohammed, you're asking if a lion will take down, or lions will take down rhinos. So I think it's quite rare that lions prey on rhinos, and if they do, it's generally younger ones. Big bulls like this and fully grown rhinos will be quite difficult to take down. I think the lions will tire out very quickly, and it's also quite dangerous to get injured by a big animal like this, but it is not uncommon. It does happen from time to time, especially if the lions struggle to catch anything else and they maybe find a sub-adult one that's left its mother that doesn't have the protection of its mother anymore. You might find them do something like that. So it happens from time to time, but it is not too common, if I can say it that way. One of the most recent cases of rhino that's been preyed upon, I think it was actually at Anbion and Ngala, where Eric, I think it was like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, had a clan of hyenas that kept on going at this subadult rhino, and they basically went at him or her until it was so tired it just couldn't do anything anymore, and at last the hyenas got to take it down and could feed the rest of the clan and their cubs as well. So yeah, it does happen that these animals get preyed on, but not as much as you would think. But I think we are going to keep on going on this floodplain with these two rhinos actually starting to move away a little bit, and see if we can maybe keep on looking for those cheetahs that we were talking about earlier.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Masai Mara. We have lions in this long grass, and it seems like it's starting to rain. My name is Tim, and behind camera is Big James. It's starting to rain, and these lions here are just hiding in the long grass because they were trying to follow some topics, but then look at what has happened. They've been caught up into the open, into the rain. So they have to shelter there until the rain is over. Normally cats don't like getting wet, so I think I'll just position to Well, Jumbo, and welcome to my side where I have a very big dazzle of zebra wandering here and there, and the storm is not here yet, so it's just beautiful. Surprisingly, I'm at the crossing. When I say I'm at the crossing, annually we do see mass crossing of animals like zebra and wildebeest. And this is where we come see them. And surprisingly, we have a good number of them that have come here. So I've come to witness if they're going to cross. Jumbo, I'm Isaac, and on camera is Bungay. Sorry, earlier on, there were some gremlins that got onto our system, but we're back now. And we're right here at the crossing, and it looks like there is a small gathering of a dazzle of zebra, or dazzles of zebra. This morning, there was a miniature crossing where a good number, about maybe 33 of them crossed. Of course, it wasn't live, but they are here, and looks like they are gathering and discussing if they would like to eat the grass on the other side of the river. That's one thing which is going to do that. Of course, I cannot tell you the exact reason because the grass on this side is still very fresh also. After them, passing here and trampling on it, walking on it, almost wearing it down to the ground, all the rains have come, and now the grass is so green and tall, so I don't know why they're crossing. It's just that there are zebras, and they want to cross to get to the other side. This is what happens during a crossing. They come and gather. There is a few crossings, at around 200 meters apart. So they move to one, stay there for a little bit, and then come back to the other. And then eventually one zebra decides that there's too much time wasting and goes down to the river, crosses, and everybody goes across. It is very interesting because at the same time we have some very hungry, crocodiles waiting And already I'm sure they've had the hooves come down. So right now they are getting ready to get a meal that is very unexpected. To see a crossing, in end of November is one amazing thing, because we rarely get to see that. Normally it happens earlier on in August, September, October. But, these animals have stayed here quite a long time. They seem to be making some progress towards the river. The crossing they are going to, it's called the main crossing. And if they do cross, then there's going to raise a lot of questions, especially for me and my fellow guides, because we say that the crossings are over when some migration is over, but we're still seeing it quite late in the year. That is the situation we have here. A big rain cloud coming. We are expecting the short rains, and they've been with us for the last 3 weeks. So it's not unexpected. We expect some rain, and hopefully it stays there a little bit so we can actually go see a crossing. That is the river. We are not very far. It is quite low considered the amount of water we've been receiving from the rains. This could be a good crossing, but the other side is a sheer wall, so the zebras know not to use it. They're still proceeding further down. Sometimes it is very confusing when you're seated here, because you don't know exactly which one they are going to use. So you try and find a raised spot where you can see most of the crossings, because you might have some heading in different directions, and you hope that the majority head down to the river, and those are the ones you're going to follow. It can be very, very, very confusing. Remember, zebras are very good crossers, unlike wildebeest that sometimes just jump in and without gauging the water. The zebras are actually very smart. They get in and they just walk one step at a time. They never panic. And if a crocodile gets a zebra, it's definitely a different situation, because a zebra fights. It does fight a lot. It bites and kicks. Of course, if the crocodile is not holding it by the muzzle or the neck, it will try and bite the crocodile. So they do put up a fight. They don't go down easy. This could be a very good crossing if they decided to, before it rains. But there's nothing I can do apart from sit and wait. Name, Jumbo, did the giraffe cross this morning? Yes, it did. I had to ask James and team at breakfast table. They were very excited to have seen a crossing that late, and there was lots of questions raised actually, why did the giraffe cross by itself, and also why did the crocodiles not get it? I wasn't there, but I saw a footage where James took, and the giraffe crossed quite casually and slowly, stopped a few times because of the many rocks in the water. There were 8 crocodiles surrounding it, but none dared to get across. And I told them, I think they know, and maybe they have experienced the giraffe kick. So the giraffe did cross. They got one zebra. It really put up a fight, but it crossed. Yes, it looks like over there is a lot of movement. It is not guaranteed that all of them are heading to the river. This is where stallions really lose their mares, because when crossing, sometimes there is chaos, And after crossing, you hear a lot of zebra barking, trying to find one another. Some fight ensues where you find, stallions trying to take over other stallions, mares, and there's lots of going on. There's a little one there, maybe about 2 months. Could be making its first crossing if they do. And there is a Thompson's gazelle, the little antelope with a tail that's moving like Pfizer. Is it Pfizer or Liza? Well, you ask, when they cross, do they last there for a long time or are they temporary? Good question. It can be forever because they might proceed on towards northern Mara and stay there for quite a while until the migration come, and also they might come across 2 days later. So there's no particular answer to your question because it's very, very interesting here. Animals cross and then after a few days they come back. But if there is enough to eat and they really go north, it means they will stay much longer. Yeah, looks like they're inching in. There's a crossing there, but it's not a very good one. So I'm gonna try and get closer to them so when the action starts, actually I don't miss out. The crossing is always an exciting and exhilarating experience because there is too much happening at the same time. Stallions trying to bring their mares together to cross together, crocodiles trying to get a meal, and also the zebras trying to wade through the heavy current. So it can be very, very interesting. Well, it's getting darker and darker. The clouds are coming. It looks like we might get rain later on. So a point like this one is perfect for me because I can see a few crossings. So in case they cross anywhere, it's easy to get there in a few minutes. You can see them there. They're heading down towards the river. If it rains, of course, they normally tend not to cross. But if it stays like this, they will cross. They're closing in to the crossing. Okay, I'm gonna stay here for a little bit longer. Let's take you to another live location.
We have just come to the spot where the cheetahs were last seen, and we found this herd of waterbuck that's standing, and they've just been a little bit nervous. A lot of them obviously looking towards us. There's one bull there in between all the females. You can see him with his big horns, and then there's a couple of individuals that keep on looking further to the right hand side, and we tried to see if they can maybe tell us where these cheetahs are just by looking at their behavior, where they're staring. Maybe they can smell the cheetahs because there's quite a prominent wind blowing from what looks like the south. So we just southeasterly. So we're just trying to see if we can identify where they are looking, because you can just see the way that they are clumped up together like that. They're a little bit nervous. There's another vehicle driving around now as well, trying to help us to see if we can find these cheetahs. There's a little section with some long grass. Oh, they just spooked. Look at that. All of them running. Oh, very, very peculiar and interesting. All of them running in a straight line but going into the wind. So whatever they're smelling or saw was not upwind.
Well, I promise you that we're showing you these wonderful clouds because there was a leopard on this termite mound. He just also has perfect timing, so he's decided to move off as soon as we came to you. I'm not sure. He's moving on the other side of the mound, but as you can see, there's a lot of movement at the moment, and in fact, it's quite a busy sighting. So I'm going to have to move away from it to allow others in to enjoy it in a bit, but we'll stick with him as long as we can.
Well, my zebras are still walking towards the river slowly, slowly. It looks like they are very scattered now. But definitely when they go on that fine line and then start running, there is no crossing where they are turning there to the left. So I'm not really worried. It's very rocky and there's a big pool of hippo. So I'm not very worried, them turning left there. They need to go straight towards that open patch from where they are. That's where the crossing is. I hope they can do that before this heavy rain hits us. Yeah, it's quite a good number if they do cross. It's a very late crossing, and I think, oh, they just ran. I don't know what spooked them. Look at that. They just left the river. I don't know what spooked them. Definitely it's not a cat because some of them are heading back. Could be a scrub hare. They're very cheeky scrub hares. They wait for you to arrive until the last minute when you're almost onto them, and then they just poof, and really can scare you. Could be a scrub hare or a reedback. See how they've stopped and looking towards where whatever spooked them is. If definitely it was a lion, you would hear lots of snotting, making alarm call to alert everybody. But it's something small. That's what I think. Remember, we are live, and we're here in the Masai Mara, the Mara Triangle. And it's quite a good number of zebra. If this does happen, it will go into my books as one of the most, late crossings I've ever witnessed. I've never seen one in end of November, and it's clearly they're here for that reason. I don't know how many crossings have happened, but this morning they did cross, and definitely this one looks like another promising one. Maybe it's been happening without us knowing, so it's very interesting. Later, do other zebras come to help when a zebra is in trouble? No. It's everybody for himself here. They normally stand and look backwards and in a very shock, and they give a very shock looking, look, and they look very scared and remorseful and sorry, like how they're looking right now. That's how they do it. They just stand there and there's nothing they can do. They know they're lucky, they've escaped, and so they just stand there with that stare to show some, sympathy, but they don't help at all. But it's very different when they are out in the open and a hyena gets a young one. You see the stallion or the mare going very fast towards the hyena and trying to kick it. So it's very different for a predator. It looks like they've caught the right direction that I wanted. You can see there is a line that's headed a long way down, and that's where I wanted them to head. So looks promising. They're still about 400 meters towards the crossing that's there. If they do cross in the rain, it's going to be very, very interesting. I've never seen them cross during the rain. Yeah, they're inching into the river. So I think the best thing is to get closer, just in case they decide to jump in. Well, it's getting dark here because of the clouds. As I go towards my crossing, let us send you to another quiet session of, to listen to nature.
Welcome back. Hello, hello. We are taking in every single individual here. Coming down and getting a little drink. And it's quite an amazing view that David is giving us. These are all brown-veined whites. I just have to say that earlier I mentioned they do migrate. They don't migrate in a mass formation like the African migrant does. But these guys do make marginal migratory routes, especially when areas become almost overcrowded. They do something called lemming-type migration. So when it gets too crowded, they decide then to move slightly east. But the African migrant is the butterfly species that has a huge migratory route through the central part of South Africa. Wow, how crazy. Amazing. Also, just a reminder that if folks can go take a look at something quite amazing, you can head over to wildearth.tv/explorers to take a look at this amazing new chapter within Wild Earth's platform. Be sure to check it out. It's something quite incredible. Obviously, the journey that we're going through now is a remarkable in itself. So these butterflies are tied to, like I said, if you look at vegetation in South Africa, you would have butterflies basically matching the vegetative group because of their larval stage, needing a certain type of food. So for these guys, their larval food would be that of boskia, which is a very prominent tree within Tswalu. So when these individuals have successfully mated, they'll go and lay eggs, and then when those eggs hatch, the young will then feed on the leaves of the boskia tree or shepherd's tree. And then they go through a full metamorphosis. So they go from this worm-like caterpillar and they transform into these wonderful and elaborate-looking creatures. And obviously having the ability to fly to reach different food sources, evade predation, and find mate is a really remarkable advantage to these insects. Sure, there's lots of them. David really giving us an up-close and personal view of these wonderful creatures. And this is just the start of the season. So as we progress further into summer, they become more and more prominent. There was a question asked earlier about their lifespan. So some species that don't even feed can live for a few weeks, a week roughly. Some species like the Charaxus, a very large species of butterfly in South Africa, they can live for several months. And then if you look at global distribution of these beautiful insects, there's some species in South America that can live for up to a year. So it's an old fallacy where they live for a couple of days or a week or two. They've actually got quite a lengthy lifespan on them. They're playing a very important role, so it's very important that they do have a longer time frame to achieve what they need to achieve. The proboscis busy doing its job. That feeding tube that will be rolled up under the animal's head. Wow. See the long antenna, obviously a very important sensory organ within the insect group. That's how they sense and gauge their environment, picking up chemical clues via those antennae-looking structures. And you can see where the name brown-veined whites come from. You can see those beautiful lines. That's where this species gets its name from. And the whole family group is known as whites. In Africa, there's around about 30 different species. And in South Africa, we have 5 through South Africa itself. It's a nice diversity of this one family group. So you can see how that elongated tube is a very important tool to reach into flowers. Stuck in bed, how many did I count? Let me give a quick count here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, just in this patch there must be easy 50, 60 butterflies. There's a patch in front of us, and there's another patch just to our left-hand side over here. And all busy utilizing this soaked soil for their water requirements. And then, like I briefly mentioned, there will also be valuable minerals that they are taking up over here that they need in conjunction with their high energy food source, which would be that of nectar, to sustain flight. I mean, just on that patch there's 3, 5, 6. Just in that patch there's about 15 butterflies. Remarkable. Male and female will look fairly similar to one another. Female will actually have darker markings, so those brown lines, the females will be more prominent than that of the males. But obviously you have to look at them over quite a period to really start judging the difference between male and female. Incredible how close we can get with these little cameras, because that is true detail that you folks are viewing there. Wow. So Lepidoptera, you'll find moths and butterflies in the same group, and if you've ever picked up a butterfly, you'll find that there's powder that comes off the wings. That powder is actually tiny scales which totally cover the entire wing itself. So if you ever pick up a butterfly to remove it, obviously to take it out the house or ensure its safety, don't worry about that powder-like substance coming off. The butterfly can still fly if that powder is removed off the wings. It's only if the wing is physically broken, especially the first wing. If you look very closely, the wing is actually broken up into 2 sections. There's a front larger wing and there's a small wing that sits underneath that larger wing. And if the primary wing is broken or the margin is torn, that's unfortunately disastrous for the butterfly. But otherwise they are fairly hardy little animals in comparison to their size. You'd think they're very fragile. See how beautifully they fit together. And then in the mix of the butterflies, there's tons of little flies, there's wasps, lots of ants moving around us, and even the droppings that are around us over here that obviously have been deposited by antelope are also very valuable to a wide range of insects, just like these butterflies. It's discarded items, but there's still nutritional or mineral value within poop. And if you think where life all started was in the mix of poop and debris. So these butterflies will get what they will need. They'll mate, they'll lay eggs. And when those young hatch, they'll even be a very important part of this system, you'll find that even wasps utilize butterfly larvae at a certain period for their own reproductive strategies. And hopefully in the next few days we can go out west and show you folks something remarkable, that of a wasp called a thread-waisted wasp, which is very active now, going in search of larvae, stinging them, paralyzing them, and then burying them under the ground. And then before they leave this paralyzed host, they deposit an egg on it, cover it up, and they are gone. So not only the butterflies playing a vital role, but the larvae, the bodies, the pollinating. It's unbelievable. What minerals are they getting from the soil? Silica, a lot of organic matter, plants that have been broken down through obviously decomposition. That's all sitting in between these tiny little grains, and obviously the proboscis able to suck up leached minerals and elements that obviously is very important for sustaining energy, but then also for development. When it comes to even developing eggs, they would need certain trace elements in the production of eggs. And I mean, just think about flight itself. It's a very laborsome activity. You've got to be producing a lot of energy to sustain flight. A lot of little elements found within the soil. And sitting over here, I was telling David earlier, the smell that the water has on the soil at the moment makes me think of a fish tank. So if you've ever put your nose to a fish tank, and the smell that you smell is what that's the mixture of the water and the earth. It's a very earthy, hydroponic.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm sure we'll get them back in no time. You might have noticed that I'm speeding along a little bit, and that's because I've just been to the hyena den. As I was going down to Treehouse Dam, I just could swing past, and Ntima was there. And she sniffed around, and then she proceeded to walk to Treehouse Dam. I thought she was going to have a bit of a lie down there. You know how hyenas enjoy a spa day. That's what I thought, and then she kept on walking past the dam in the direction of the old den. So I'm speeding along to the old den, just to see. I mean, we never know. They could have moved, or maybe she's herself looking for some place. Maybe there's somebody else who's pregnant. Whatever it is, whatever it is. If she's moving towards the Shibama Road den, I want to know why. So that's why we are moving towards that road den too. It smells very good and fresh after the wonderful rain, thunderstorm. Very, very good. Very nice. I feel like this weather calls for a couple things. Wild dogs. It's good wild dog weather, and elephants. Miss my elephants. Oh, if you're wondering about Tingana, yes, we had to move off, but he was also very, very close to the boundary. He could have either crossed south or west. He was in that corner. get very excited when you don't know what you're going to find, and that's how I feel at the moment. Going to the den and we don't know if we're going to find other hyenas there, we don't know if we're going to find Matimba there. Just so you know, this is the old den. This is the Shibamo Road den. Stuck in bed, you'd like to know if we're expecting rain? Yes, and a lot of it for the next few days. I'm just going to go over to the den entrance. You can see this den has not been used in some time. Everything's grown over. I feel like she might still be walking in this direction, but we will see noticeable activity. At the moment, there's none. Maybe I was just being hopeful. So I'd see lots of tracks. I'd see fresh digging. Of which I see none. Remember this? This was the den entrance we spent so much time at. Very, very cool. Alright, well, I guess I was just being hopeful. In that case, I'm going to head over to Twin Dams, a little bit more east of this, and see if there's some elephants playing around. And I'm going to send you over to Lauren to immerse yourself in a really nice, silent nature segment.
Good afternoon and welcome to all our viewers to and beyond Ngala, where we are currently busy looking for any signs or tracks of wild dogs. I'm Yapi, and behind the camera we have Sebastian. And we have quite an overcast day here. It's nice and cool today. And we had reports of a large amount of vultures in this area. You can see the clouds over there. And we are really hoping that they might be in this area because of wild dog activity. On overcast days we find wild dogs are quite active. They do go on the hunt earlier in the afternoon. And with the moon that's quite bright at the moment, I'm sure that they might have started hunting earlier in the mornings and even continue a little bit later into the evenings. But this far we haven't had any signs. This morning we had quite a good rain bout, and most of the signs or tracks I think would have been rained out because of that. Other than that, the wind's blowing a little bit, so the general game in the area are moving into the denser bush where they can shelter themselves. It is a little bit cool, but after the last few days, I think it's a very welcome feeling. And then other than that, we had a lot of elephant activity around the riverbed area. And we had reports of lions earlier, but the area that they're in is a very, very tricky part to head to for this afternoon. So I think we'll stick around the central part and see if we might have any luck with those wild dogs. Of course, anything that comes along the way, there might be some good birding to be done, maybe some large birds of prey. Find that they sometimes, on an overcast day like this, it's cooler, so there's no thermals rising to aid them with their flight, and because of that they might be perched on the trees without leaves. But eventually, so where we're driving at the moment, we're quite high up in the central parts of the reserve, and there are some good views, but at the moment the bush is so dense that it's very tricky to spot something from the road itself. And that's why we rely a lot on tracks this time of the year, but the rain makes that slightly more complicated in certain cases. But when those wild dogs do start hunting later on, they'll come to open spaces like this. So, Rosalind, good question. What is the population of the wild dogs in the Kruger Park at the moment? I do know that people during the lockdown period this year, people did struggle to come in and do the normal research that they usually do on wild dogs. So I think it's varied quite a lot. It depends on the litter sizes of wild dogs. Their breeding season in this particular part is usually anything from May up until August, and I have heard of some very large litters this year that survived. So it fluctuates all the time, but last numbers that I heard is between 250 to 300, but I also recently saw a report of about 250 to 400. And usually the first couple of months after the breeding season, the numbers are quite high, and then it drops drastically into the next year. Around November, December, you usually find that the young ones are old enough to start hunting with the pack again, and then the pack explorate them within the hunts, which means that is when they're most at risk of encountering other predators and other dangers to them. But what we're hoping to find this afternoon is, even if we don't see any direct signs of, we are with a very young lambs at the moment.
Sorry again about that, guys. I'm sure we'll be back in no time with Ingala. We've been saying that it's quite overcast. It seems that all the animals are hiding. Well, not this Birchall starling. This Birchall starling, as you heard, said, "Not me, not me. I am here." And yes, you are. It's my... I think it's my favorite. I've always said it's my favorite starling, but I saw a violet-backed starling. First one I've seen for the year, I think. And then I remembered, gosh, those are pretty birds. So I think they might be tied. Although the Birchall starling is consistently beautiful. In my eyes, at least. However common it may be. This was Theo's find, another fantastic bird. It's the Battalier. I was at Juma for Halloween, so I didn't get to dress up as the Battalier, which is what I wanted to do. I think they're gorgeous birds. Especially with their long coat tails. The edges of their wings look like coat tails. The wind is picking up and it's feeling quite stormy at the moment. I'm actually here on Ledworth Road, so you might be familiar with this Battalier because there are 3 of them that hang out on this road. I think I'm going to visit Buffelshoek Dam first before I head into Torchwood. And the sexes are really easy to tell apart with Battaliers, as I'm sure many of the viewers or seasoned viewers would know. The males just have 1 band of white, see there? The females have a second band. So you can see that this one is most clearly a male. With birds, the easiest way to tell them apart is by differences in their plumage or differences in size. Because they have a cloaca, so you can't really tell based on their genitals what sex they are. And I quite like that you can tell from their plumage because it shows. Let's turn that down. Because it shows so much variation. There must be so much genetic variation for each sex to be distinct within their species. For some reason that just makes me happy. It's like having all the different Legos to build your Lego man with. And there's genetic diversity. When there's very little genetic diversity, it's like only having red, blue, and yellow blocks to build with. It's still build. It's just that you don't have much variation at all. And if something disease only attacks blue blocks, and basically all you have is blue, red, and yellow blocks, then whatever you build is very likely to get that disease or impairment, whatever it is, that brought on genetically. That's why it's so important to have variation. Unfortunately, it looks like I might have to give Torchwood a skip? I hope not. I'm going to go to Buffelshoek Dam. And then wait before I head into Torchwood, because I'm sure I just saw a flash of lightning from an easterly direction. Stuck in bed, you want to know what's the rarest bird I've ever seen? Here in Juma, I think a white-headed vulture has been the rarest I've seen. I mean, in southern Africa, there's only about 100 to 120 or so pairs of white-headed vultures, so I consider that pretty rare. That was a super, super find. The other birds I've seen are maybe not seen as often, but they're not rare birds. I see them rarely, but they are not rare birds. But the white-headed vulture, that was a nice notch. Because they certainly are rare. Alright, well, we're going to, I think, just spend a little time at Buffelshoek Dam before we decide to venture into Torchwood. See if this weather clears up.
Okay, so Craig and I was driving and we actually found this sour plum tree growing next, or bush growing next to the road, and I actually let Craig try it for the first time yesterday, and we just could not just stop and have one. So the green ones are not ready yet, but the orange ones are ready, and often you'll see a lot of them that have been the skin taken off, and you'll just see their skins lying all around the place, and that's when the baboons and stuff find them. There's one right at the top here that's been eaten by what looks like a bird or so, a nice orange one, and I've got a few in my hands here. So what you want to do is, when you find sour plums like this, is you don't want to eat the skin, because the skin is horribly sour. It's like quite bitter as well. And so you just take a small piece of the skin off, like that, and then you push them into your mouth, just like that. They are so sour, but they are super good. So if you're from South Africa, when I was a kid, there used to be these sweets called sour bombs, and they used to make your tongue go raw. That's how sour they was. That's how Craig actually remembers them. And I guess that's not a good thing, eating sweets, but they taste exactly like that, but without the raw tongue part. But so cool to see that they're fruiting, and there's so many fruit coming out. So there's this orange sour plum, and then there's another one here in KZN. I don't know if they occur in the rest of Southern Africa, but there's a red one as well, which is a little bit sweeter, and that one by far is my favorite. Can't help but let guests taste them when we drive past and see them also pull their faces from the sour plums. It's the best thing ever. But a nice treat in the bush that we just found on our way to go look for some other animals. And quite an inconspicuous bush when you drive past them, and they don't have these orange fruit on them. It just looks like any old spike thorn. But very cool to find. But yeah, it's very interesting that there's some of the birds and stuff that have started eating on them. But you just look for that bright orangey color that these fruit get, and they get nice and soft when they're ready as well. Then you know you are good to eat them. But this one has a lot of green fruit on them. But it looks like there's maybe a few of them that's got a few spots on them as well. That maybe won't be edible, but when the birds and the baboons and the monkeys start feeding on them, then it's a good thing. With the vivid monkeys actually also eat them. So with baboons and vivid monkeys, if baboons eat something, we can necessarily not feed on them on that particular fruit also, because baboons' stomachs can tolerate a bit of poison or so. But when a vivid monkey feeds on something, there's a very, very good chance that people can also eat it and survive without getting poisoned. But yeah, sour plums are super nice to find, especially in the bush. Nice snack, a lot of moisture in them, so on a hot day it's a nice it's sour, but at least it has a bit of moisture in it. But for now I think yeah, we are gonna keep on going. If we see some more sour plum trees, we took a few bright orange ones, but we won't take too many to leave some for the animals and so as well. So just turning my radio off there. We're gonna leave this this bush here. We don't want to take too many and leave some for the animals and so as well. But I think we'll see if we can keep on going and look for some other animals as well. But something that's very interesting of this part of Phinda is there's actually quite a bright red soil that's around here as well. And that just shows you all the different habitats with all the different soils that's around. You can see this bright red soil that we're standing on now. I think it's every single mom's worst nightmare to try and get this red soil out of clothes, and so especially the kids growing up here on Phinda. I'm sure their moms can tell us all about it. It's a very rich iron-rich soil, and what this red color that you can see is actually iron oxide. So it's almost, it is rust that's in the soil that gives it this red coloration, and quite nutritious, and you can see all around us how dense it is. So it just shows you that a lot of trees and everything growing here. It is quite hard soil, but the trees and the grass does grow around. We actually have a marula tree behind us as well. It's actually a pretty nice and productive spot here. It'll be a little bit difficult to point out marula trees, but there's just around the corner there's some fig trees as well. So we've got a marula tree that's just here behind us, and we actually saw just a day ago that there was some of the marula trees on Phinda that started bearing their fruits as well. The fruit is still also green, but once it starts to become a yellowish color, then we'll be able to go and get some of them as well. And another thing that will show us the marula fruit are ready to eat is when the elephants come and they start shaking these marula trees, then you know the fruit is ready to be eaten. Just a bit of a breeze coming over now, but I think Craig and I are going to keep on going. It was a nice little stop here, and we'll keep on eating our sour plums as we go, see if we can go look for some other animals.
I had a humongous millipede that's just fallen over the side of the vehicle now. On the bonnet. It was on the bonnet and he walked off. But we have this instead. Now when Steve does a who dung it for you, he shows you one of these bad boys, you'll know it to be millipede. It's dung. Shall we just call it poop to cover all bases? It is still wet, but it's certainly poop of the millipede. I saw it come out myself. I wish I could tell you more about it, apart from the fact that it's fresh. Yeah. How many of you have seen millipede poop before? Probably not many, so this is a first. That's wonderful. I wish it was the first for me, but it's not. I have seen it before. It looks very, very poop-like for a diplopod. Anyway, I think we can get rid of this now. Without... There we go. This is still quite wet, so... I wish I had more to tell you about it. It was on a red bush willow's leaf. Sometimes it's just cool to see those things so you can recognize them. Now we shall continue to drive. Millipede was very cool. It looked like a giant African millipede. Very, very big. Although its legs were more purpley. Cool though. I'm just enjoying the day a little bit. Yesterday it was so hot. My goodness, it was so hot. And it's nice to... Hello, Vaslia. Flying off. Off it goes. Theo didn't even flinch. He was like, Trish, it's gonna be gone. So the coolness of today is very welcome. Black Widow Spider, you'd like to know what's been my most memorable experience on Drive? I wish I could answer immediately, but I can't. It's still warm. This is amazing. It is still warm. Let's just pop it on here. Because there are tiny dung beetles in it too. Wet and warm. I wish I could very easily answer that question, but I can't. Everything. I mean, there have definitely been some memorable experiences. Look at them. But I can't pick. There it is. Tiny little dung beetles. Look at that. Tiny little things. Here's a medium-sized one. Just there. There it is. Oh, this is great. Tiny dung beetles. Oh, that's a little larvae. Beetle larvae. Tiny little dung beetles with tiny little dung ball. So sweet. I just want to at this time remind you, considering that the time that we're living in and there's so much emphasis on washing hands and cleaning hands and germs and things like that, that herbivore dung is perfectly safe for me to touch. This is the dung of an elephant, a little one, but it is the dung of an elephant. Now, considering how wet it is means that hopefully they're close by. On a day like this, it's more difficult to tell because the sun is not beating down, so I can't. So it could have been sitting here for an hour, and not gotten dried up. Very cool. Look at all these things. For these little grubs, these little larvae, and these tiny little dung beetles, their whole world is this dung ball. How cool is that? They're busy exploring all the possibilities in this dung ball. They're dung explorers. But I think that you guys should become wild earth explorers instead. There's a whole lot of interesting things going on, new and exciting things. So why don't you pop over to our website, wildearth.tv/explorers, and see what it's all about. Nice. This dung, I think we shall put it back onto the ground where these dung explorers can continue with their work. They have a lot to do. Oh no, straggler! I so wish I had the microscope right now. This is a mini dung beetle. Look at that. Look at how mini it is. You can even see the shovel-like head, but just mini. It was 3 millimeters. Oh, that is so cute. Look at that! I'm sorry, this is really amazing. It's even got a little sheen going on. Looks like a plum dung beetle. A little bit of a sheen. Everything just mini. Okay, little buddy, now you're all by yourself. Let's put you back onto your dung ball. Let's put you back onto your dung ball. Oh, blue axle. Lisa, you say that it looks like a tick. I'm saying it quietly because that's offensive, Lisa. At least to the dung beetle. I wouldn't want to be told, but yes, I get what you're saying. It is tick-like in shape, but the oval shape tends to be a common one across insects. So if we had the microscope, it would have been really nice to be able to see exactly how it is a perfect replica of an adult dung beetle. Made quite a mess on my dash today. Millipedes, millipede poo, dung beetles, dung. Neva, you'd like to know how old that tiny bug is? I have no idea. No idea. Probably very recently. I don't know. I'm not even sure how many instars they have. Maybe 8. Or 8 comes to mind. But I'm not sure. I was going to give you a guess when I realized that I really can't. Some waterbuck. Try and get you a beetle. Hello, waterbuck. We can just see you. Oh, that's also very lovely. Those are the yellow, beautiful flowers of the African wattle, which is framing this wonderful waterbuck male. And he decides, no, I'm going to put my head down where you can't see me, right into that weeping wattle. The wind's really picking up. Something's gotten its attention. Say, you'd like to know what the biggest waterbuck I've ever seen is? I really don't know how to answer that question, because when I see them, I can't weigh them or take their dimensions or anything like that. So it's difficult to answer that question. But I've seen some really impressive males on Chitwa. Really, really nice, impressive males. Generally, they're about 250 kgs, even up to 300 kgs. But of course, I can't measure that without putting them on a scale, I suppose. So it's difficult to say if I've seen huge waterbucks. I think those horns are very, very impressive. I like how it's got ridges on it, and where the ridges are convex, where they poke out, they're rubbed so much that the keratin is almost scraped, and it looks like white circles around the horns. Very cool. My hands now smell like baby elephant. At least one hand does. Well, let's head off to Buffelshoek Dam before the rain starts coming. I can see it. I can hear I was about to say I could hear the pressure changing. I can feel the pressure changing. Oh, and I'm feeling drops. Hopefully it does not get worse. The last time I was caught in the major storm, it was from Buffelshoek Dam, heading home. So let's hope that's not a bad omen. Let's hope so. All right, off I go. And I hope that there's elephants at the dam.
Okay, so we have not had any luck with the vulture activity that was reported earlier, and unfortunately we also haven't had any signs of anything nearby. So what we've done is we've come to a large watering hole where we've encountered some very active wildebeest. It looks like 3 young males. One stopping to check us out. I wonder if he might call. And then a glance back at the water. And that's quite interesting. You can see the hippos in weather like this are slightly more active. We just saw 2 of them come up. There's one that looks like a younger one actually. Here's a large one. If I'm not mistaken, the smaller one we saw first might be one trying to get on the mother's back somehow. And you can see, look at the foam on top of the water. And I've often had the question, do hippos swim? Well, they're quite heavy and they don't actually. They are a little bit buoyant underwater, but they walk along the bottom of any watering hole or riverbed. You can see they're quite alert, checking around, seeing if there's anything coming down.
There's quite a lot of birds sitting on the edge of the water here, and they're all just sitting on this side of the watering hole because this is where the wind is blowing the least. But if you have a look at the long ones with the long red legs and the black wings, some black-winged stilts, that's feeding here closest to us. And then just next to them we've got a 3-banded plover there as well. A lot of birds sitting on the edge here. And then we've got quite a lot of bigger ones, the brownish ones there with the white faces tucking their bills into their feathers on their backs and then between their wings. Those are some white-faced whistling ducks, just taking a nap and sleeping here as it's a very cool afternoon and it's getting dark much quicker than it would usually with all the cloud cover that we've got. So I think they are settling down. And then even further back there is a African spoonbill stork that's also sitting with his whole bill tucked away in his feathers. And they've got a long, flat bill. Interesting that he can hide it away. And a little bit further along the water, seems like there's It looks like a common reed cormorant or African reed cormorant sitting next to the water there as well. And quite a lot of birds in the back there. There's quite a few red-breasted swallows also flying around, calling. Big birds, some big white birds sitting there. There's some, looks like some yellow-billed storks. A few Egyptian geese feeding on some grass as well. And the odd blacksmith lapwing walking around them as well. Oh, the water still attracts a lot of birds. So even though we are going into the rainy season, there's very little standing water around. And we're hoping that there's going to be a lot more rain and the rivers will come down and fill the watering holes, which will make all these birds very, very happy. But for now, I think Craig and I are going to keep on going and see if we can maybe look for some other animals.
So we've got some bird life of our own here, and just have a look at how close those little ducklings are to the parent. You can see they got their little heads or their necks tucked away and their fuzzy feathers. And it's amazing to watch because they're literally just bobbing on top of the water. Can't go too far from the parent. It must be quite cool at the moment for them. It did cool down considerably today, and there's a relatively strong breeze blowing from the southern side, so blowing straight towards where that Egyptian goose and her ducklings are. And I think that's why they're trying to insulate themselves. You can see they're moving on the other side of the mother, away from the wind side. Or not. That's quite interesting that the babies of a Egyptian goose is called ducklings. And these birds mostly feed off grasses, grass seeds and seeds of other plants outside of water, but they do occasionally take little insects and other invertebrates. And I've noticed that the large goose have been picking something out of the water there. You can see now the little ones are moving back to the side of the adult that's sheltered from the wind. And it looks like they're heading out of the water. Where there is a blacksmith lapwing hiding nearby as well. You can see the blacksmith lapwing's head is also tucked back, trying to keep it warm. Here we go. And you can see they go to those little poles of grass. Actually amazing to see. As soon as something draws their attention or something spooks them, they instinctively head back towards the water. You can see by the wing of that goose that the wind is blowing quite steadily. And Minamu, it certainly is cuteness overload. Especially when they start getting really active like that. It's like those little fuzz balls with on sticks. And look at that, the two on the right picking off what looks to be floating elephant dung. Maybe with some of the undigested material might be of worth to them. And have a look, I'm sure they're going to walk from the one grass pole to the next. I do wonder where the other adult is. It's quite interesting. The other day we saw both. Oh, I think it's coming from the back. You can hear it calling. And I'm sure they're going to head over towards each other. Well, this is quite an interesting situation here. With all the elephant dung like that pile right next to the ducklings at the moment. Elephants don't have a very efficient digestive system, so whenever the dung gets dropped somewhere, especially in an area like this where there's quite fertile soils near the water's edge, it kind of acts as a pile of nutrients, some pretty good grass or food in the case of these geese to grow near the water's edge. And you often find that animals, in case of mammals, something like impala or birds that feed off grass and plant material, are quite abundant near the open spaces close to the water's edge. Every time an unknown noise or a sudden noise gets made, the little ducklings are wandering closer towards the water's edge. There we go, there's the other one. You can see the blacksmith lapwings in the back just staring at them. And back to the water.
Welcome back to this side of the country. We have stumbled upon these two lazy flat cats. And it's getting to the cooler part of the afternoon, and hopefully these two brothers become a little bit more active for us. We have been in search for a fork-tailed drongo. We have found one in this area, but it has flown off a little bit too far for us to follow. And that's when we managed to locate these two sleeping brothers. So looking at the status, they don't look very full. And that's what we're hoping, is that they become a little bit more active now to the later part of the afternoon, which would be great for us. So right now they're just conserving energy and just taking it easy, which is really nice to see this behavior. Yeah, and be sure to take a look at wildearth.tv/explorer for all that new and exciting adventures ahead of us. Something very, very exciting on the table. And we're very pleased and very happy to be part of it. Very lazy. Kalahari scrub robin in the distance. So if we see a little bit of stretching and a bit of yawning, then we know we have got the start of business. I see a very clear sign or indication when these larger cats are going to move. A lot of yawning and stretching will take place before the cats get up to move. Sure. Hello? There are some springbuck a little bit north of us, a little bit northeast of us, which is good. And there's a lot of cover for these two boys to make a successful approach and a suitable prey item. Cicadas in full swing. Oh, lovely. Nice paw shot David's giving us there. Obviously you can see the extent of those nails that are very, very important for these cats to get up to that top speed. Also for the initial part of the chase, which would be obviously the grip that these animals need. The animals need to accelerate from 0 to like 60, 80 kilometers an hour in roughly 2 seconds, which is quite incredible. So those claws being semi-extended, it's actually from the ligaments and how the cheetah's legs are designed. And along with those ligaments, they don't allow for the claws to extend all the way into the sheath like that of lions and leopards. But also a very important tool that they utilize to a very high degree. You've got to think about this animal at top speed, and it's taking all these twisty turns left and right. Those claws become like trackman spikes, digging into the ground and just giving the animal maximum grip. Because antelope are very agile. That's a tactic on how they evade the jaws of these animals. And then obviously along with that very muscular tail. But all this animal is designed for speed. It's sacrificed everything else. So it's a very specialist carnivore. If you take a look at lions and leopards, obviously they are optimistic and they are all-rounded. I mean, hunting from trees. I mean, leopards can hunt from trees, thick bush, ravine lines, really remarkable animal, whereas in this animal is specialized into a hunting format, but that of speed. Obviously to chase down the very fast open plains games of Africa. Good afternoon. Typically hunting during the daytime, and it's more prolific early morning, late afternoon. It's obviously maximizing their chances of running into a potential prey item. Obviously with animals, hooved ungulates moving to and from water, that's the perfect time that these animals can hopefully bump into a meal. So while we're sitting here, we're just scanning left and right, just making sure that we don't miss anything, because obviously we don't want to be an obstacle, or an obstruction, sorry. So if we do see a prey item, obviously we keep as quiet as possible. We minimize on all vehicle movement, just to give prey and predator the maximum chance of success. And obviously us in the mix of things, we don't want to be a disturbance. Sure. Alright, for now we're going to send you off to one of our colleagues and we'll see you when you get back this side.
Sure, but no, don't do that, don't do that. Just have a look at that. Look at all those trunks up in the air. That is absolutely amazing. Extremely well organized. A herd of elephant that big, female there at the back. If I had to take a guess, that is more than likely the matriarch of this herd. Now the wind is coming from our direction towards the elephant's direction. Now, there's a chance that they might have picked up on our scent and was a little bit hesitant, which is unfortunate since they are very far off on the complete other side of the watering hole. But then again, there might also be something that we're not aware of. Something like a large bull elephant in the area. You can see some of them is coming down to the water. It looks like it's the young bulls. This one doesn't seem to be too bothered. I can see a lot of these elephants have temporal secretions next to their head, so it might be an indication of a bit of stress.
Aren't we lucky? After driving through the Mawati quite a lot, we had heard that a leopardess had wandered into the Mawati and that it was very, very thick. So we took a chance and we came in here, and luckily we managed to spot Kalamba. And we can't even get, we're quite far from her. Look at that. And we can't even get where she's sitting. So this is when the camera really, really shows its stuff. I mean, to get an image like that sitting as far as we are, that's awesome. So we have two problems. Firstly, we have one very wonderful sighting, but the two small problems are, if she moves, we will definitely not be able to follow her. And secondly, if it rains, we'll have to get out of here very quickly, because getting up these banks when it's wet there's going to be a problem. There's two things to keep in mind if our sighting with Kalamba is a bit more brief than we want. I think she's enjoying the cool after yesterday's cooking. Honestly felt like I was cooking. It didn't help that I decided to put a whole heap of sunscreen on and lotion on. And it almost made me cook even more because it was like the oil to cook in. Obviously, Kalamba didn't have that problem, but she did have to deal with the heat. I'm sure today is a blessing for all our predators. We shall also thank the Franklins who alerted us to her presence. She's tucked away in such a way that if you're driving towards or driving north in the Milwaukee, you won't be able to see her unless you turn back. So it was the Franklins that made us do that. And now we have this gift. Taking it easy on what is today, a Wednesday. That's Kalamba shooting the midweek breeze. Keeping very, very chilled. Well, we're going to stick around as long as we can, as always, with our royal family. Maybe she'll get up and move towards us. That would be awesome. Oh, I'm so glad you got to hear that. So glad you got to hear that. Look at this girl. Look at the strength. Oh, that gives me all the feels. Feels so powerful. Just look at her. If you're wondering why I'm so excited, I haven't seen Kalamba roar very often. Very often. I've heard her. I know that it's her sawing, but it's been a very long time since I've seen her. That was epic. See, she soared. Franklin's going crazy again. Oh. Such power. A bird caught her attention there. Such a quick look. Snap to the left, snap to the right. Very model-like. She's this perfect combination of princess and power. Sammy Jane, you'd like to know if they smell better than they see? I would, based on the adaptations they have for each smelling and seeing, I'd say that they can see better, or their dominant sense would be sight over smell. But that's a difficult thing to choose from because they're doing different things, obviously. But also when there's a gap in sight, then the smell takes over. For example, if it's completely thick bush and they can't see whatever it is they're looking for, then they sense of smell is the main one that comes into play. So it's difficult to compare those, to say that one is better than the other. Let's talk about those adaptations just briefly. So smell, broad nose, not as broad and big as a hyena's, but still broad. Hyena also has broader nostrils. Vomeronasal organs, or Jacobson organ, which are tiny little holes in the plate on the palate of an animal. It's filled with a liquid gel-like substance that amplifies the chemical receptors that come their way, or chemical signatures for the receptors to receive that come their way. So there's that amplification. So that's where that really keen sense of smell comes in. Apart from that, also their whiskers can assist with, kind of like how a dog with long ears, how the scent gets picked up by those ears. Whiskers can do that too, to a very lesser degree. But all of those are adaptations to smell well. Adaptations for eyes, though, they can see in very, very low light. A full moonlit night is very bright for them. When there's no moon in the sky, they can still see it very, very well. Their pupils can dilate to over 100 times their smallest dilation. I think it's actually 135-fold that they can dilate those pupils. Tapetum lucidum in the back, so that the light can be collected by the retina twice. There's all these really interesting adaptations. And for me, I feel that eyes trump or sight trumps smell. But that's just me. It can go either way. It depends on what you feel is most important. And I don't think it's actually relevant to choose what's important. It doesn't mean anything, because each one has its own time to be dominant. Each sense has its own time to be dominant. I think she agrees with me. I think that was her saying, yeah, doesn't make a difference which one's better. They all do the job for me. Yes, they do. Well, that was awesome. Awesome. And the light is getting a little bit lower, but we're going to stick around.
And there goes the herd of elephants. Just have a look at that. It is amazing to watch that. All those grey, dust-covered bodies. You can see shades of red on some of them. See that one along the side of the head, the ears, the backside. You can see some temporal gland secretions on that female. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of questions that come up. Why would that be? What were these elephants doing? Where were they? Now, the soil colors show the different areas they've probably been feeding today, and during the middle of the day it was quite warm, even though it was covered in clouds, and that's why we see the dust and the color on the backs. But I think there must be quite a bit of stress on a herd that size, especially in this area. At this time of the year, there's a lot of elephants around. So that's why I think they were also drank so quickly and started moving off in the direction of the wind. Now, at the moment, there's not much else that's come down. There were 3 cattle egrets earlier down there where the elephants drink, which is quite interesting as well. I wonder if these egrets have been following the elephants, hoping to cash in on some free meals. But it is quite odd in this particular part. We don't often see cattle egret here. Yeah, it was amazing to see those elephants. As soon as the matriarch decided to move, they all followed in suit. The strong breeze blowing now, the cool air, the uncertainty of the weather, I think it all plays in part on the actions and the decisions that herd had to take. They've got a lot of young ones to take care of. I'm sure they're moving down also towards areas where it might be a little bit more sheltered from the wind. I'm actually just giving them a little bit of time to move off. You can see the hippos are starting to show a little bit of signs of movement now. They've just gone down under the water, unfortunately. But you can see, if you look at the ripples on the water, you can see clearly that there's a very strong breeze blowing. And I think that's why those hippos are putting their heads under the water most of the time, because it's quite cool. And yes, even the hippo gets cold. It's got a very thick skin, an even thicker layer of blubber under that skin. But the skin is very, very sensitive to especially temperature changes in its surroundings. Oh, here's a little bit of action. And just settle straight back down. Now, I'm unsure exactly what happened there, but it looked like it might be maybe that a larger male pushed one off that side, and that's why it raised its head up like that, trying to show its tusks. And then it's also got the means to defend itself. Now come in about an hour's time or so, if the light disappeared quickly, I think tonight will be darker earlier than normal. And then these hippos will move out, leave the water, head down to the shelter in the nearby dry riverbeds with the rough grass along the banks. And who knows what they will encounter there. Just look at the size of that hippo. It's often very difficult to judge the size of these animals when they're down in the water, and then as soon as they raise themselves up, we realize that that's one huge animal. And there's always one hippo that starts to make the move and move out of the water. I don't think this hippo is that hippo at this stage. But if you look very carefully, you can see there's like little waves forming on the flank of the hippo as the water's hitting it. It looks like it's hitting the hippo at quite an impact. Oh. It's amazing to see how strong the wind is down there where they are. And those ears are up, quite alert. There's a lot of birds starting to call, starting to go nearby. Looks like it is scanning the horizon. Or maybe it's just keeping an eye on the other hippos nearby. Just have a look at that. Some lip smacking. Opening the jaws wide to show off the tusks that it's got. Claudia, that's a good question. Do hippos get any infections from all the feces in the water? I'm sure that along with all that feces that's dropped in the water by elephants, hippos, all kinds of other animals, there's definitely quite a bit of bacteria in water like this. But the hippo has quite an interesting way of protecting its skin. It's got a antibacterial secretion that it secretes from pores within the skin, and this often covers up the skin. It's red in color, so it helps with the absorption of some UV rays, so it protects against the sun, but it also has a healing factor to small cuts and things like that. At the same time, I'm sure that there's an elephant calling somewhere from down below us. But I'm sure that that secretion and the antibacterial qualities within it helps the hippo to heal up quickly. Then again, if it was one of us, I'm sure it won't be the same if we had to get into this water. It looks like these hippos have settled now. There's not too much happening anymore. Well, this is usually when you start to see them getting more active, moving like this, then you know they are starting to think about leaving the water, moving along very well-known, well-set-out game trails, which is essentially a network that they know, I suppose, like people would know the roads in the area that they're living.
Had reports of a herd of elephants that crossed through the area, but we were too slow and they crossed into a difficult area for us to find them again. But we came across a whole crash of rhinos, 2 cows with a little calf here, and then off to the right hand side there's actually quite a big bull lying down. But this little youngster has been very cheeky with that female lying down. He's been rubbing himself against her and even poking her with his horn as well. He's going to investigate the bull. Oh, no, just smelt a little bit towards him. Going next to Mom there. Let's see. Oh, just rubbing up against. I don't know if you can hear that sound there. Their skins rubbing up against each other. Super playful. Oh, look at that. This youngster maybe wants that little spot to lie down. Let's see how he's now standing and rubbing himself against the one that's lying down. Ed, you're asking if rhinos are smaller than hippos, like those hippos we just saw at Ngala. I think white rhinos are quite a bit bigger than a hippo, but a black rhino might be a bit of a similar age, I guess. But these white rhinos are definitely much, much bigger. Look at that youngster scratching his face on the horn of the other one that's lying down. Getting those itches. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is so awesome. Looks like a young bull, so you can imagine he's going to be quite cheeky when he grows up. But look at that female that's next to him, how wide she is. I think she's definitely pregnant here. Oh, listen to that skin rubbing up against each other. Went and scratched us between his back legs there, on the horn there. I think the rest of the rhinos are trying to settle down, and this youngster, being so young, has a lot of energy just drinking milk and feeding a little bit on grass. See what he gets up to now. Oh, listen to that. Listen for like a squeaking sound or so. He is not interested in settling down just yet. So precious. Oh, look at that youngster rubbing his head now on his mom's back there. See the youngsters now listening towards us. Look at those ears just pointing straight at us. Also, be sure to go have a look at Wild Earth Explorers. You can head over to wildearth.tv/explorers to see this new exciting initiative and what it is all about. See how this female is like starting to sway from side to side as it's cooling down, and you can hear the birds and the cuckoos and everything calling there in the background. It's getting dark very, very quickly with the overcast weather. I think they are slowly gonna find a spot to lie down. I think this female is maybe standing upright because this big dominant bull is close by. She's maybe a little bit nervous of him. This youngster is super inquisitive of our vehicle, and maybe my voice, just looking and listening at us. Not done being mischievous just yet. Maybe he wants his mom to lie down so that he can snuggle up next to her there. There the youngsters going and lying down, giving us his bum. Mr. Will, you're asking what a rhino's food is, or favorite food is. So these white rhinos, if you have a look at that female while she's looking towards us there, she's got that flat, square-like lip, ideal for eating grass. So white rhinos only feed on grass. And then hopefully, if you keep on watching Wild Earth, at some point you might get a chance to see some black rhino, and you'll see that they've got a more pointy lip, and it's almost like a prehensile little finger that can wrap around twigs and leaves, and that is the only thing that they eat. So white rhino and black rhino eat very, very different foods. This female just listening behind her and in front of her. But here we go. So she's swaying from side to side. I think she wants to settle down. This youngster is just being naughty. Just that bit of a jerk lying with his head on top of the head of the other rhino there. Such a beautiful end to the day with the birds calling in the background. It was just starting to drizzle a little bit as we got to these rhinos, and we can see how the rain's starting to fall in the distance. Look at this youngster. Oh my goodness. Horning the foot of the other rhino there. But for now, I think we're going to leave this mischievous little calf and his mum and the other rhinos as it gets dark, and see if we can find some other animals.
So we've left that watering hole. The wind started picking up quite a bit, and it looks like the hippos disappeared and the elephants have moved off. And we've decided to move a little bit further east away from that, see if we might find some hyena around this area that's got large open spaces. There's lots of herbivores that come and settle for the night in these parts, and we're hoping that we might find some hyenas on the prowl. I have to say, it is quite interesting to experience weather like this during the summertime in the Lowveld, where now, at this point, it's actually quite cold. And these are the large floodplain areas of the Timbavati River. So these parts are very, very active. Good feeding grounds, sweet grasses. You can see those open areas, sparsely vegetated with little shrubs and bushes. But because of this very cold wind at the moment, there is not a lot of animals around or in sight. And I can even feel a drop of two coming down at the moment. And what we're going to do from here is we'll head down and take the road on the other side of the river and see if we might have some luck.
This cat has been very good to us. Very, 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 very good. She moved from that spot where it was a very tough spot for us to go to, and I had to move out. We couldn't see anymore, and just as we moved out that exact location, we moved out to, remember, gorgeous girl. Hey. That exact spot we moved out to, she popped out. Then again, we had to make adjustments and move and all of that. Managed to catch up with her again. Every time, it's just been serendipitous. Our spending time with Palamba this evening. How gorgeous was that face as she walked by? And she knows there's people in the car. Often, many guides and rangers say that, well, the animal doesn't recognize that there's humans in the car. They just recognize it as one entity. And that's totally understandable. I can understand how that would be. How are they going to know, how are they to know that there's multiple people in the vehicle? But she'll look at me, she'll make eye contact with me, she'll make eye contact with my cameraman. She knows there's separate people on the vehicle. I think that's a very, very special thing to feel. She knows I am one thing. She knows cameraman is one thing. And that we are separate. Or maybe she thinks we're part of the vehicle, but she still can recognize that there are two different souls on it, or beings, or living animals, whatever it is. And there she goes. There she goes again. Glenn, you'd like to know if leopards see in color? They do see in color. They see in a sort of color that's just a little bit paler than what we see. Kind of, you can imagine pastel-like versions of the colors that we see. So there are three color cones. Cones are the special receptors in the eyes that receive color. And the three colors that we use are red, blue, and green. Leopards have color receptors for blue and green. So that means that there's chemicals, there are chemicals in those cones that are specific to wavelengths that are specific to those colors, specific to green, specific to blue. But they don't possess cones that are sensitive to red light, the wavelength associated with red light. We do. That's why we see the amount of colors that we do. So they can see those colors minus red in any color that is a mixture with red. In fact, that goes for almost every mammal, apart from some primates and ourselves. Slinking off. I think if you're lucky, in fact, not even if you're lucky, most likely you will see her on the dam cam this evening. Oh, Miss S's fourth graders. Hello, I'm so glad that you're joining us for this lovely safari. You have an important question, but first I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to follow her through this block because it's dark, it's wet, and I think that she's hunting. So we're going to bumble up to quarantine. Now, the lovely class has asked me if I ever get afraid or scared of the animals. No, I don't get scared where I want to react, but inside I can get a little bit nervous. But that's very important, and that's a good thing, because if I'm not nervous and just a little bit inside paying extra attention, call it being alert or cautious, if I'm not like that, then I can be complacent, or I may make a mistake or be a little bit foolish, and we don't want that. So it's important to always be a little bit cautious. And that's why when she walks by, I know that she's never jumped on the vehicle or jumped on me or anything like that. And I've seen her on foot when we're walking, and she's never behaved in a way that would make me expect her to hurt me. But that doesn't mean that I should expect that all the time. It's important to remember that she's a wild animal, and I don't know how she feels today. So I can't just assume that she's going to be the same all the time. So it's important to be just a little bit scared, or just a little bit extra alert with any wild animal. Because every wild animal is potentially dangerous. That means that it can be dangerous even if you've never seen it be dangerous towards you. That even goes if you see a dog on the road or a stray cat or anything like that. It's important if you want to help them, like you want to help any animal, but you should always be aware that sometimes animals will be dangerous. It's just the way it is. So it is raining now. Not raining hard, but raining consistently. So my face is very wet. And our lovely Tlalamba, wasn't that nice? I really felt like that we were just meant to spend that extra time with her, because she just, like, I can't even describe. Every time we kept having to find a gap in the Mawati because it was a really thick section. It's a section we don't normally go to. Kept needing to find a gap, going down one side, going in back, and going up the other side, and all of that. It just kept reappearing. When I called her in to say that if anybody wants to see her, you can stand by on Twin Dams Road, because she's likely to pop up there. And when I said where, she popped up exactly there. So it's just one of those things that make you feel like you were in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And that was a very cool feeling. There are no antelope on quarantine at all. At all, at all. Right. Spotlight, you need some work. The wire for my spotlight is stuck underneath my seat. Alright, I'm going to try and sort that out, but really, we're getting a bit too wet now. So, let's see if we'll manage to stick it out. If not, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, something very special. We are still sitting here with the cheetah, and we have seen something very special. In the middle of your screen, you'll find a little reptile that has just emerged from its burrow. It's basically sitting at the burrow entrance. And we've heard this little reptile prominently through Tswalu over the past couple of weeks. It's been that call that I've made out to be as a tick, 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 tick. It's a very distinctive call through the summer periods here in Tswalu. This is a barking gecko. This has to be the second or third sighting I've had where I can see an individual at the burrow entrance. You can try and sneak up on the burrow on foot. You've got 2 chances at seeing this little animal, and they are more than likely both 0. So having the luxury of seeing this little individual, obviously absorbing the last little bit of sunlight before the onset of night, is just fantastic. And look how tiny that little thing is. Our 2 male cheetahs still taking it easy. There's a little bit more activity than there has been over the past half an hour. But myself and Dave were talking, and I was looking at the moon. We are past halfway, and I think that these individuals are utilizing the cover of darkness in order to hunt now. So leading up 2-3 days before full moon, 2-3 days after the full moon, I've documented these cats time and time again utilizing that bright celestial body, because that gives them enough light in order to hunt under the cover of darkness. Obviously giving them a bit of advantage, but it is definitely something that is prominently displayed by these 2 males, as well as the wild dog pack here on Tswalu also utilizes full moon nights in order to hunt. And looking at their behavior, it's becoming more and more evident that they are, and we might get a bit of action in getting up and stretching, and I really do hope so. But the afternoon really tapering on to full swing. There's the first barking gecko. It's just called tick, 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 tick. Yeah. Lovely scene. His head's not down, but it's not up. Now it's down. Okay, so activity has increased, which is great. There's potentially dinner out there, chum. Don't know where those springbuck have gone. There's one very close. Tick, 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 tick. Yo, how endangered are cheetah? Well, most carnivores this day and age, unfortunately, are under great pressure and threat from human activity. And habitat loss is by far the biggest factor pushing animals to a very dangerous area. So if you look at cheetahs, only about 7,500 of them worldwide. And looking at a carnivore like this that plays a very important role, you know, that's a very small number in terms of the greater scope of things. 7,500, that is just a blip on what there should be. So it's a fairly endangered species, and that's where Tswalu has a very important role in terms of what we do for conservation. If you look at cheetah in the Kalahari, they are perfectly suited. Back in the day, we thought that, you know, they wouldn't do great out here, but obviously after studying them and really observing them in this harsher region of South Africa and Southern Africa, they do extremely well. You would find that parts of the Kalahari, they rely on springbuck. 80% of their diet consists of springbuck. Over here in Tswalu, it would also be a fairly large portion, but they tend to vary a little bit more than just focusing on springbuck. So farming, obviously, is a big negative influence on these cats. Their massive home ranges that they have, they come into conflict with farmers quite a lot, and farmers won't hesitate to, unfortunately, hurt these wonderful and beautiful animals. And then they do have a lot of pressure from larger carnivores, hyena and leopards and lions. They unfortunately can't defend themselves as well as larger, more powerful individuals can. So I'm a fairly endangered individual. So if you look at lions, wild dogs, cheetah, they are all, on a very tricky area at this point in time. And that's why we have to conserve and protect areas, large scopes of areas, in order to have viable habitats for these individuals. And it's very, very important. So if you look at wild dog, also only about 7,500, that's the second rarest carnivore on the African continent, behind that of the Ethiopian wolf, which obviously is a very specialized hunter, which occurs on the high velds of Ethiopia and sustaining themselves on tiny gerbil-like animals, which is remarkable. Giant mole rat. David has had the luxury and the privilege of actually going out to Ethiopia to go and find those elusive animals, and he has been very successful. So he mentioned that the animal that they sustain themselves on is a giant mole rat. And you think about these dogs, almost the same shape as a wild dog, but sustaining themselves on these mole rats, which is incredible. So a very specialized hunter at that. But with Tswalu, we are doing great work with cheetah. I mean, my time in being here and having the privilege of working and living here, I mean, just in a rough estimate, I can quickly tally up nearly 30, 40 different individuals, and that is the individuals that I physically know. That's not counting the other animals that are very wild, that hear a vehicle and they're gone. So there's a lot of cheetah on Tswalu. So in terms of conservational efforts, we are doing as much as we possibly can. And Tswalu is always striving for new frontiers of what could we do more? How could we be better? And that's obviously a very important aspect of where the Tswalu Foundation comes in. Because the better we can understand, the better we can protect. Which is obviously very important going into future generations. To preserve and protect animals just like you're seeing now. So the birds having their last say now for the afternoon. And now there's a few more barking geckos calling around us. Beautiful. So very important behavior by conserving energy and obviously just taking it easy. We spoke about, do animals get bored? Sure, the higher, more intelligent animals do show boredom, like primates. They're very intelligent. Things like dolphins definitely show boredom. Higher species of dogs like collies. But these individuals, I think, in a system like this, where you have an opportunity, if you have a bit of food in your tummy, you've got a bit of shade, and who doesn't like to take a cat nap? Boredom. But I'm going to ask David maybe just to give us a nice broad scope of the landscape here. Lily, by their general behavior that we're observing now, no. If they were ready to hunt, they'd be stretching, they'd be yawning, they'd be scanning, there'd be a bit of grooming going on, and then thereafter, movement. Just by their behavior now, they seem very comfortable and very relaxed in the position they're in. And fingers crossed that they do get up for us and maybe show us a little bit of action, a bit of body movement. But it's also just nice to observe an animal like this in its most natural state. And that's where obviously animal behavior for me comes into vital play, is that if I'm not watching an animal that is in its most natural form, then for me it's kind of an anticlimax, because I don't want my behavior to alter or change the animal's behavior. For me, this is learning. So if it's changed, that means I'm not really and truly learning. And that's where obviously guards on Tswalu have obviously just given these animals respect over the times that they just see us as nothing, or maybe something. A tiny little head. Oh, sleepy. Very snoozy cats this afternoon. So obviously being diurnal animals, daytime operating, they actually fall into an area referred to as crepuscular. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to send you off to one of our colleagues for now.
I am on quarantine. We're having a look at the antelope on quarantine, the wildebeest and impala and zebra. And then we heard Kalama soar again. And now there seems only to be left the wildebeests. Hopefully we'll be able to see them. Only just, if at all. But you can hear the woodland kingfisher. And I want to just be quiet and maybe she'll soar again. No such luck, but I really think that she'll appear on the dam cam. If she hasn't already, she definitely will. And it's always lovely. Maybe we'll get a visit from her around camp too. Lovely call of the woodland kingfisher. It is so beautiful for 1 week, and then not so beautiful after that. Then it's just beautiful, and then it becomes cool, and then it's nice, and then it's that woodland kingfisher, will it ever stop calling? But still, very cool. Well, you know what? We've had a fantastic drive. I'm so glad we got to see 2 leopards and also these antelope on quarantine. So I think with this rain, I'm going to head on home.
There are definitely some bird species that continuously call, and the thought does cross your mind, like, is it ever going to stop? We actually have a lark that comes through this area when we have favorable rains that is called the monotonous lark. This species of lark continuously calls throughout the day and then is into the night, making for very large amount of entertainment when somebody's a light sleeper, which these 2 cats are not. Couldn't believe that they go from 0 to 70 kilometers an hour in about 2 seconds, going from the fastest land mammal to one of the slowest. Producing quite a nice mirror image there. so hopefully a head will sit up now and something should get their attention somewhere along the line. And they should get up. If not, David said that he's going to put on the Springbok suit that I brought out today. And he's going to go pronking around. He's giving me an evil eye. Suggesting it out. So I don't think I'm as agile and as quick as David. No. But yeah, so just like I mentioned earlier, these cats actually operate in a format referred to as crepuscular. And that is when an animal will operate early morning and late afternoon. And but you can find cheetah, I've found cheetah numerous times hunting through the midday heat, the hottest part of the day. But they do tend to favor these early morning and late afternoon periods. So it's a bit cooler, there's a lot more animals moving, and so their chances of stumbling to something increase, which is obviously great. You want the odds on your side when you are a predator, because you really do have a tough out here. I think besides everything else, predators have it the toughest. Maybe 3-4 days you're having to push yourself to capture something that wants to evade you. This is fourth grade. There are a mini cheetah on Tswalu. So it's like I mentioned very briefly earlier, in my time, my brief 4 years of working and living on this amazing landscape, I can roughly estimate it at about, nearly 30-40 different individuals. And that's just a rough count on what I can just tally up. There's more than likely a little bit more than that, but that's a very healthy and viable population. So if you look with cheetah back in the day went through a massive bottleneck, and that obviously basically shrunk the genetic value of cheetah across Africa. And if you look at cheetah, you've got to be very careful of where they go. So for example, if we had to relocate these two boys to another reserve that, for example, starts, we have to ensure that, there's no cheetah that side that are closely related to these individuals. Because of how depleted the gene pool is, or how small the gene pool is, you can have basically inbreeding. And that affects an animal in multiple ways, not only making it less resilient to diseases, you can start having genetic deformity. So you could have, an animal with shorter legs, for example, or a bigger head, which is obviously not very good. So ensuring in terms of conservation, you've even got to be careful of where cheetah come from and where they go, just to ensure that the viability of the genetic pool is as diverse as possible. And that's very, very important. But there's a lot of cheetah on Tswalu. There's some cheetah like these two boys that are very relaxed with our presence. Obviously, they've been viewed for a few years, so they're used to the coming and goings of vehicles. And then there's some individuals on Tswalu that are very wild. We call it here chasing ghosts. So you could be tracking a cheetah, and if that cheetah catches wind of you, if it hears you, if it sees you, it is gone. And to try and catch up to it is a very difficult task. And you don't want to push an animal. You want the animal to, be at a distance where it feels comfortable with you, and then you can have the luxury of viewing it. And each individual is different. Each individual has its own comfort range, so to say, where it feels comfortable with human presence or with another organism. So each individual has its own unique personality, same thing. But yeah, having the luxury of having so many cheetahs is wonderful. And then you really get to understand, individuals themselves, like these two boys. They really enjoy hunting in the dunes and when they go north. And for example, if there's another female, she enjoys hunting smaller prey items. So allows you to really understand individuals across the board. Yeah, just to mention again, just before I forget, just to mention again that wonderful new initiative, wildearth.tv/explorers. Please go and check it out. It is incredible, and I would greatly appreciate that. Like as I do everything, because time is everything. Sure, the mountains are looking very, very beautiful. Maybe give us a shot there, Dave. David's going to show us the mountains very quickly and how the color and the shadows are really starting to broaden out. And it's going so much more greener now with the setting sun. And there's so many animals just tucked away there. And by general view here, it just looks uniform. But there's life on those mountains. Really, oh, there's the Egyptian geese crossing us. Well, it's been a fantastic day so far. Thanks very much for joining us today, guys. Please be sure to join us for tomorrow for sunrise, and from now until then, cheers.